Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by hunky, hairy, huggable homos to review film and talk a little bit of movie news. Although this week we're doing a double feature, so sorry, movie news, no time for you. We do have a lot to discuss, but first, let me introduce my wonderful cohorts. Jim Pugliafco, welcome back to the show.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
And Will Lindis, welcome back.
Hey, viewers, listeners, welcome back to the show.
All right, so we do have a lot to discuss tonight. We're going to be reviewing not one, but two movies. Annabelle, the new horror flick / prequel film, follow-up thing to 2013's The Conjuring, and of course we'll be discussing Gone Girl, the new potential Oscar grab film starring Ben Affleck and his penis? ? But before we do all that, we are quickly ramping up to our 100th episode. Tonight is episode 98.
Oh boy!
Exciting stuff on the horizon. So plans are still in motion for how we're going to celebrate entering the triple digits. But we would definitely like to read some listener feedback. So on that episode, we will be reading some of your comments. As usual, you can leave those for us on our Facebook page by just going, searching for Movie Bears Podcast on Facebook. You can tweet us at MB Podcast or send us an email at moviebearspodcast@gmail.com. Help us celebrate our 100th episode by sending in some of your feedback, and you may just win yourself an MBP t-shirt. So send it in and let us know what you think of the show. All right, guys, are you ready to get to our first movie of the week?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right.
Definitely.
Here we go, then. Our discussion of Annabelle. Jim, did I just hear a door slam all by itself in your room?
No, that was the cat acting crazy.
I heard something from my end and wondered exactly the same. If I'm going to be looking in the background and a Riker standout poster is just going to reach out and grab Brad or something like that.
I actually wouldn't mind if Riker reached from behind me and grabbed me. I'm just
Riker gives you the reach around on the Movie Bears podcast.
So no, it wasn't a demon doll. It was a demon cat.
Well, hey.
Yeah.
So, as usual, we're going to talk about this movie spoiler-free, so that if any of you are on the fence about seeing Annabelle, you can get a little advice as to whether we think it's worth your time and money. And after we have all weighed in, we will then dive into spoilers. But Jim, why don't you give us a little bit of setup for this movie and tell us, is it worth checking out in theaters now, checking out on rental, or just skipping it altogether?
Oh boy! All right. Well, as you mentioned, Brad, this is Annabelle. Although this movie just came out, we saw The Conjuring last year. Before The Conjuring, in the timeline, though, there was Annabelle. And for those that did see The Conjuring last year, which probably was the best horror film of last year, I guess, arguably.
I would say so.
Or best mainstream horror film, I guess we could say.
There you go.
You'll remember, and this is no spoiler, but you'll remember the setup. This may be a spoiler for The Conjuring if you haven't seen it, but you'll remember the setup of Annabelle from the effective opening scene of The Conjuring. And also from a less effective ending stinger from that same movie. But you'll remember Annabelle from that movie. And for those who haven't yet seen The Conjuring, I'm just going to read the kind of the IMDb summary for Annabelle, and it says, and I added to this a little bit. A young expectant couple begin to experience terrifying supernatural occurrences involving a vintage and wholly unrealistically creeping, that was my ad, doll, shortly after a frightening event in their home. And then hilarity ensues, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
But anyway, went to see this film. I'm always up for a good horror movie. I have my I go into horror movies pretty skeptical. Like I don't think I've been really scared by a horror movie in a long, long time. Conjuring came pretty close. This one was slightly better than my expectation, I would say, but still just overall okay for me. Pretty much what you'd expect for the genre lately, kind of generic horror, a few and not a lot. Jump scares, some mildly terrifying, creepily terrifying moments. You know, where it really shines, I guess you kind of feel something from that movie. Otherwise, I guess it's just okay for me. And I think it's probably about a half a step below The Conjuring for me as far as its effectiveness as a horror movie. It's not bad. It's not a terrible movie. It's just, and I think it's a good date night movie. And as far as recommending it to see it in theaters, I'd say if it's a Friday or Saturday night and the theater is full, as it was for us, we saw it in a very full auditorium on a Friday night date night, which was really cool. I think that's kind of fun. I mean, I think that can definitely elevate the experience for this type of movie specifically, because you got people in the theater yelling stuff at the screen, whispering to their dates or their friends, you know, oh, this is where she blah 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 blah, you know, and there's a general buzz throughout the movie, and it's a lot of fun. But if not, if you don't get to view it in that kind of situation, I would say wait a little while, find it on Redbox, VOD, then put away all your dolls, turn off the lights, snuggle with your boo, and have a fun night on the couch. That's what I would say.
Brad, you heard that. Put away all your dolls.
Aww. Skeletor doesn't like to be put away.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know, right? All right. So, Jim, this is kind of wait and see it for you. Will,
like
how
I said,
about you?
Yeah, if the only time I would recommend seeing this is if you could somehow pretty much guarantee that you were going to see it in a fun group setting.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I guess I'll go ahead and go. You know, we did see it in a very full theater, and that's not the typical experience when we see films. Usually theaters are, I don't know, maybe a third full. But this time, I mean, it was packed. And typically when people are talking or, you know, making responses, I'm like, shut the hell up. But this time, I don't know, man. Like, I know, shut up. You know, it was so much fun, like watching everyone sort of, you know, jumping and going crazy, and even when people were yelling at the screen, there was this one woman, and I won't talk about it now because there could be spoilers, but early in the film, she's like, "You stupid dumb bitch! You do not go down there!" And she's just being very loud, and you know, it was kind of comical, but I think the movie is good in that it does scare people, even if it's not the scariest film you've seen, or you know, it's not really scary for you personally. Obviously, there are a lot of people out there who are scared by things that happen in this film. There were a few jumps for me. There was some creepy stuff that you know, kind of made me not sleep very well. I had nightmares after seeing the movie, so I think that's the mark of a, you know, decent horror film. I agree. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near the Conjuring level, but I would say I had a fun time. As creepy dolls go, you know, it was interesting. I can't imagine why anyone would think that Annabelle is a pretty doll and be happy to receive her as a gift, but you know, mileage varies, I guess. But I did enjoy some of the kind of the occult stuff they did around the doll and the satanic cult. It's in the trailer, so whatever. You know, so I mean, we'll delve into more of that, I'm sure, here shortly. But I mean, I thought it was a fun romp. I think you should go see it if you're looking for a good date night movie. If horror is your thing, I'm sure you'll probably enjoy it on some level. I think it's worth it. I probably wouldn't, you know, necessarily spend $15 to go see it, but if you can catch it, you know, $10, why not? Mm-hmm. What about you, Will?
So this is a curious little movie for me, because on a lot of levels, I would say, like, I don't think as a whole I really walked away from the film like super satisfied or super enjoying everything that I saw. But then I started thinking about it after I got home, like, well, what about the individual elements? What are the things in this film? And I ran into the problem of like having a hard time really figuring out what it was that didn't fully connect for me. What did connect was this is a film that has, I think, some really, really smart jump scares. I think some of the jump scares in this, loud music, loud bangs, things like kind of like popping up in front of your screen, are extremely effective. To your point, Brad, I had someone sitting like 2 or 3 seats over from me. It was kind of an empty theater when I saw it, but and I'm at a no talking allowed theater. But for a horror movie, there's a bit of an exception that gets made, and there's this girl sitting a couple seats over from me who just, I think her catchphrase the entire night was, oh hell no, oh hell no, the entire movie, just like when something would happen. And it made the film a lot more enjoyable because of that. So, and a lot of people, I think, are really quick to like attack a horror film that relies on jump scares. They consider them like cheap scares or something like that. But realistically, like, it's, maybe it's not like the most sophisticated approach, but it is something that people look for, especially this time of year. This time of year, you're going to the theaters, you're looking for something scary, you're looking for something to get you to sit forward in your seat, and from just the jump scares alone, I think this film delivers. Some of the narrative points, I think, were some of the points that fell apart a little for me. I think the film got wrapped up a little bit too much in its own storyline. It had some smart things that it was trying to do, but I don't think it executed every single one of those effectively. All that said, I think I'm kind of in Jim's camp. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't love this movie. I think that this movie is great for what it is. It's a film that's really only going to be successful this time of year when people are already looking for scares. And if you're in that mood, if you're like, man, I'm ready for Halloween, I'm ready to be scared, and if you can go into it and like completely suspend your disbelief, you'll probably have an okay time with this film. Otherwise, yeah, wait for Netflix, wait for Redbox. And if this movie is not your type of thing, I don't think you'd actually you'd be losing out if you skipped it entirely. So it's totally one of those neither liquid, neither solid films for me. Hard to fully recommend, but I didn't hate it.
Well, that's going on the poster. I didn't hate it,
I didn't hate it.
So, guys, were you ever creeped out by dolls as a kid?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I grew up in the era of like, when I was a kid, we had these things that were called the My Buddy dolls. I don't know if you remember those, Brad, because we're the same age. So you remember My Buddy. And shortly after My Buddy became a thing, and I had a My Buddy as a kid. That fucker was cool. But then out comes Child's Play, and you get the Chucky doll running around, and he's about proportionally the same size as that doll. So I never had it quite as bad as my sister was super freaked out after the Child's Play movies, and I would be a little asshole brother to her and move her dolls around and stuff like that, just really mess with her after because of that. But yeah, I mean, at some level, I think everyone in our generation has had that. I think it's because of Chucky.
It's funny that you mentioned that. My sister was really freaked out by the Child Play movies as well, and my grandma in her kitchen during the holidays used to have this 3-foot-tall elf that was like the size of a My Buddy doll. It had its little red hat on, and it was posable. And my sister was convinced that thing was alive. And we used to go to my grandma's house during the day when my mom was at work on Christmas vacation, and my grandma was at work too. So, being the little dickhead that I was, she would go into the bathroom, and I would bring the elf out of the kitchen, stand it in the hallway outside the bathroom door, and put its arms up toward her. So when she opened the door, she would just flip the hell out. It was awesome until she kicked it and its head fell off and broke, and then I got in trouble. But yeah, I think those movies warped our brains.
They really did. I spent a little stretch of time managing a Spencer's Gifts, the store that's in almost every mall across America. I spent time managing one, or at least shift leading one. Anyways, we sold life-size Chucky dolls for a while there, and it became one of the gags around the store. You would go back into the office and you'd set up Chucky in the chair right behind the door, holding a pair of scissors or something like that, so that the day manager would flip the hell out the next morning. So yeah, it's just something weird and great. It's something about dolls and clowns, two very, very innocent things that affect us on such a primal level. And honestly, I blame Chucky and I blame it for those two things, at least for our generation. Now, Jim, you didn't grow up with Child's Play as a thing. Do creepy dolls get under your skin?
You know, I don't have any personal experiences with kind of creepy dolls, but there's been a couple in the movies that have creeped me out. One is from a movie called oh God, now I'm not going to remember the name of it. Night Terror or something like that with Karen Black. Can't remember it, but anyway, it had a like a little tribal doll that she got as a gift, and it was supposedly carried some kind of curse. And it gets out in her apartment, and the thing's only up maybe a foot and a half tall, but it basically attacks her at various, just out of the blue. It'll just come running out from under a chair and start stabbing her, and that was like one of the creepiest things I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if you looked it up, Will, but it was pretty horrible. And then, Will, you mentioned clowns and dolls. But when you put them both together, you get the clown doll in Poltergeist. Do you guys remember that?
Oh, my God, yes.
That was a pretty creepy moment. And, I mean, it was just a very brief scene in a kid's bedroom. There's a thunderstorm. Things are starting to happen. Occult or, what am I looking for? Paranormal things are starting to happen. And the doll basically, I forget, I think it's in the chair one moment, and then it disappears the next. Won't get into spoilers for Annabelle, but it reminded me a lot of Annabelle. The way they manipulated the doll in the movie was very much like that. And there are things that they chose to do and things that they chose not to do, which I thought were pretty smart. But yeah, I mean that's what I remember about my doll experiences.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great segue, actually. How do you guys feel about getting into spoilers?
I think now's the right time for it because we can talk about the premise of this film. It's a creepy doll, but I think before we can really talk about the things that happen, I think they get into spoiler territory extremely quickly. So, I think we're at that point.
All right, agreed. So, spoilers for Annabelle are incoming. If you do not want to have your virginal innocence removed from you in regards to this film, now is your time to, if you're watching live, maybe go grab a beer, make a sandwich, whatever, come back in 15 minutes or so. If you are listening through iTunes Stitcher, just follow our show notes, and you can skip ahead using the time index in those notes. So here we go. Spoilers. Really now, spoilers. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Annabelle was never really animated herself. She was being manipulated, right, by the demon, but the doll itself was never alive, sort of a la Chucky. Which is kind of what I expected that the doll was going to come to life.
Like Chucky
did. Like Chucky. So
it was going to look to the left, hold up the knife,
the eyes move or something.
Right.
There were several scenes where they lingered on the doll, sitting on a shelf or just laying down, where they would slowly zoom in on the face of the doll, and you half expected the head to snap around or the eyes to suddenly focus on you or something. Right. And that never happened, and that did heighten the tension of the movie. I thought that was
so. Did that work for you guys better than the doll coming alive? You think?
For me personally, yes. I think that one of the things that you did, Jim, you nail on the head there. You have a lot of scenes here. Almost every single scene, once things really start going, ends with some sort of you get blue balls expecting these zoom in shots of Annabelle, and then you think she's gonna look, you think she's gonna do something, or maybe she's just gonna blink or something, as we've been trained to expect in this type of movie, and it never happens. We never see Annabelle move of her own volition in this entire movie. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that they didn't like that element of this movie. This movie is not getting a lot of very positive feedback across the board, and I think that might be one of the big elements why. I think people were wanting this to be the next Child's Play. For me, though, I mentioned in the pre-spoiler section, this film has a lot of really, really solid jump scares, and I think the reason those jump scares are so solid is because the film teases you so many of the other places. So while there are some legitimate things that you can maybe toss against this film and say this didn't work out, I think that the decision to make Annabelle not move or not do those really kind of things, again, that we've been trained to expect, I think was a good one.
Yeah, and the premise of the movie, and now that we're in spoilers, we can talk about it. The Annabelle doll is really just a conduit for an evil demon to come into this realm and try to obtain souls, right? I mean, that's basically what happens in this movie. And there are some very, very effective scenes that really didn't involve the doll at all. There was one in the basement. The best one for me was the one in the basement of the apartment building. She's down there putting stuff away. This is the mother in the movie. I forget what her name was. She's down there putting stuff away, and she hears noises. Of course, she turns around, and down the end of this hallway in the basement, the baby carriage comes out, and she goes over to investigate, and you see kind of a hulking vision in the shadows of the demon, and that to me was probably the heightened, the height of the scares of this movie. And then of course she's chased, or she feels like she's being chased through the basement into an elevator, and then you have the elevator scene where she's trying to get the elevator to leave the basement, and of course it won't. It's broken or something.
Oh man!
And the door kept opening. Must have opened 4 times.
That scene was freaking awesome.
And another suspension, another way to build the tension, which was when every time the elevator doors would open, of course on the other side is you expect the demon to be there to jump in or, reach his hand in and try to grab her or whatever. And 4 times that door opens and it still doesn't happen. But yet every time it did open, I was expecting a huge jump scare, and it just didn't happen. And instead of giving us a cheap, we know what's going to happen kind of moment, they just ratchet up the tension a little bit more, and I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, especially because, the director of this film, John Leonetti, his background is as a cinematographer, and there were some shots, like you just mentioned there in the elevator, that I thought were very effective. Not only was there not something immediately on the other side of it to give us like a really, like a cheap scare. But there was like this slight panning where it was almost like she was like looking around the corner as the elevator door opened each time. Again, it's just like you were this film really plays with your expectations, wants you to look in the shadows, it wants you to wait for that thing to jump out, because when it finally does happen, it's going to get you. But it's going to tease you a whole lot all the way up until that. And yeah, the camera work is one of the unsung heroes of what makes those jump scares work so well.
Yeah,
definitely.
And Brad, you mentioned the satanic cult aspect of the movie, and that's how the movie is kicked off. There's an event that happens with the next door neighbor. The next door neighbors get killed. These crazy, I guess the next door neighbor's daughter and some other cult member invade the house. Nice, Brad. Nice one. Invade the house, and they get murdered, and sure enough they enter into this young couple's house, and the pregnant woman is injured, and the 2 assailants get killed by the police in the house, and that supposedly allows the demon or evil to invade the house. But I did like the tie. I did like both the Conjuring and this movie are both set in the past, right? I think I think the Conjuring was in the 70s. This one may have been a little bit earlier in the 70s. I'm not sure, since it is a prequel. But I thought it did very well with the music selections. There was some music that was playing on a record player. They did that very effectively, just like they did in the Conjuring. They kind of tied it to some events at the time, the Tate murders that happened, the Charles Manson stuff. It seemed like that this movie happened. The time frame for this movie was right or sometime shortly after the Tate murders and the Manson family murders in California, because they flashed that on the news.
Yeah.
So which puts this film like 1969, 1970.
Right. And I thought it was pretty effective how they, the sets and kind of the feel they gave the movie of that time frame.
I really appreciated sort of the demonic aspect as opposed to just like a ghost or something like in The Conjuring, right? This was a demon and it had been conjured and supposedly was using Annabelle, right, to manipulate people. We got a flashback to the scene from The Conjuring where the two nurse girls are talking about the doll, like, sort of plaguing them just before the Warrens get involved. I found it really interesting to sort of learn the history of Annabelle and where she came from and how she came to be possessed. But I also thought there was some just real eye-roll-worthy stuff too. And I liked the film, but like as soon as Alfre Woodard came on the screen, I'm like, oh, okay, I think I know where this is going. And sure enough, she's the friend. She ends up saving the day. She sacrifices herself to make up for her daughter that she killed in a car accident. As she's telling this story at the table, A, I'm like, I fucking love Alfre Woodard. But B, I'm like, okay, well, she's telling this story about how she killed her daughter because obviously she's going to save the baby to atone. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just too critical, guys. I don't know, but
no, I think that's absolutely a fine point. The problem that was one of the big takeaways in terms of like what I didn't enjoy about this film. This film did such a good job of like making you not know when to expect the jump scares. It telegraphs its ending so much with the Alfre Woodard character that while
the priest, don't forget the priest.
Oh, and the priest too. Yeah, you kind of knew as soon as he starts doing something, you kind of know which direction that's going to go. And while it would have been great for them to switch things up, they kind of played true to expectations there. So while the jump scares really play like against your expectations and really kind of get you from nowhere, you can see all of the plot points coming a mile away. So it becomes kind of like a long slog from narrative point to narrative point.
Right.
Jump scares are great. Great tension is great, but at the end of the day, we would be sitting here singing the praises of this film if it had a stronger backbone in terms of the narrative and the characters.
Right. Yeah, and for me, I think it really didn't fall apart until the third act. When things started happening with the priest involved, and of course Alfre Woodard, as you mentioned, Brad, a lot of predictable plot points. I mean, you basically check off A, B, and C. Right up to the ending there, but in spite of that, I gotta say I was mildly amused. The movie was okay, but just nothing spectacular. It had a few moments that I thought exceeded expectations, but then plot-wise, it kind of fell into the same old traps.
And I think there are some things too that kind of confuse me a little bit, and I may be misremembering. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so in The Conjuring, it's been a while since I've seen it. There was Annabelle, of course, but there was also like that music box, right? That Vera Farmiga was able to like see the little boy in, and it played that doo 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 like melody. Yeah. But like the baby's mobile, whatever you call it, played the same song. It sounded like. So like, I don't understand. Like, is Annabelle, like the demon with Annabelle, like also haunting the music box then, or I don't really understand why it's the same song.
Lazy writing. What that is what they were trying to do a callback to the other film.
Yeah, I think it was just
people remember that music, so let's play it again. But
I think it was just a simple callback or homage to that movie. That's all. Obviously, the haunting entity in The Conjuring was much different than the one in Annabelle, right? In The Conjuring, I don't think it was a demon, like a physical that had some kind of physical manifestation. It was more of an evil presence that actually took her body over, right? Took over Lily Taylor's body at some point.
Well, yeah, but we had Annabelle doing Annabelle shenanigans back at Vera Farmiga's house, right? Remember the little girl got trapped or whatever?
I think the Annabelle, just like the music box, is a conduit to evil evil in general, whether it's an evil spirit or a demon or whatever. It's some kind of portal to where all the bad stuff is, and stuff uses those objects to get to the real world. I think that's what both movies are trying to say.
Yeah, perhaps. I think that the problem we run into is that I don't know that it says that point necessarily well enough. Because I'm in the same boat as Brad with just the music box was very confusing to me whenever I heard that tune. On I was trying to connect the dots, and I think the film doesn't want you to connect the dots. I think it just at the end of the day that it just wants you to go, hey, remember that tune? It's creepy. Yeah. We're using it here too. And I'm all for callbacks, but this one was especially disturbing because even the very final shot of this, I think it goes to black, and then you hear the music box play a couple of notes or something along those lines.
Right.
So the music box, that music note, something that doesn't have like an actual bearing in the plot itself, is the thing that the film tries to leave us with. And again, I think it's trying to just say, hey, this is now the segue to the next movie, which was actually the other one you already saw, yada yada. But it robbed the experience of me slightly. I think if it had just stayed on a very silent close-up of Annabelle, it would have been much more creepy.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I think it's trying to mirror maybe the final moments of The Conjuring, because at the end of The Conjuring, right, we see Annabelle in the mirror of the haunted music box as it plays the music, and so it almost leads. I don't know if it's trying to say there's some kind of, I don't know. I think I'm just trying to make sense of something that probably doesn't make sense at all. It was irritating for me.
Hey guys, want to hear a couple points of trivia?
Yes. Lay it on us.
I thought these were both pretty interesting. First one is, so the main character on this, Mia, the actual actress who plays her name is Annabelle Wallis.
Yes.
So I thought it was absolutely amazing that they got an actress named Annabelle to play the lead in Annabelle. And second, have you done any research on the Warrens themselves, specifically what the real Annabelle doll looks like?
Yep, I have. She's a Raggedy Ann doll.
Didn't they show it in this movie?
They did in The Conjuring.
They did in The Conjuring. They didn't show it in this one, but in the background of one of the scenes, one of the characters, I forget who, has a Raggedy Ann doll as well. And I remember thinking, like, okay, that was obviously in there as a reference. But it's a lot less creepy, and at the same time maybe even more creepy when you look at the Raggedy Ann doll, like in this glass case, and like here it tried to strangle this person, yada yada yada. Like, that's all creepy stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I guess they had to make the doll a little more creepy looking probably more for marketing purposes than anything else.
Right.
For the posters, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, maybe a half a step down for me from The Conjuring. What happened to the doll at the end of this movie? I don't remember. Refresh my memory. I know they go out the window and then.
And then it just disappears, and then you find it again in a pawn shop, or some sort of like antique shop where this woman buys it for her daughter, who's a nurse, and then that connects it to the beginning of The Conjuring.
Right. But it's all like dirty. Its eye is cracked. It's got evil pouring out of its soul.
It's like, who the fuck would buy this?
I don't know.
Seriously, it looks
here's blood in your eye.
Yeah, it's just like.
Yeah.
Tim Burton gets on a really fucking bad drug trip and is asked to design this doll. Like that's what this comes from. This is so over the top. It only exists in a movie like this. And now, obviously, the ones that you're going to find in stores that are based off of this.
Because when you first see the doll, right, when the husband's all proud, he bought his wife this gift, he brings it in. Supposedly she's wanted this. Why she would have ever wanted this doll in the first place, I have no idea. Because the thing is hideous looking. I mean, it's laughable. It's laughable how bad. Like, who would want that doll? You know?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, it's such a. I don't know if it's like a really bad design or a really great design, because I think you're right. Like, in the context of the movie, and especially the logic of the movie, it makes no fucking sense. It's so weird as it exists. But at the same time, it does look really damn good in posters and stuff like that. So it's kind of like the marketing department may have had a say-so in the way this doll looked.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, are we ready to move on to our second film of the week?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. All right, then we move on to our discussion of Gone Girl. Sorry for the really quick segue, guys. I realize we've been talking about this movie for like 35 minutes, and I'm like, crap, we still have another movie to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. All right. So, Gone Girl. I have an issue with this film, but we'll talk about that in spoilers.
Yes.
Drink, shot, whatever. But yeah, so I'll just kick this one off. Gone Girl is a new film starring Ben Affleck and Rosamund Pike as the two main characters. Neil Patrick Harris is in here as well. So is Tyler Perry, of course, who I actually did like in the film. But basically, the premise of the movie is Ben Affleck's wife goes missing, and he seems a little too cavalier about it. Suspicion is on him that maybe he had something to do with his wife's disappearance. There's, a hunt to find her, and it sounds on the surface like just kind of a procedural Lifetime movie of the week almost. The husband seems like he may be abusive. The wife is journaling and talking in this really creepy voice, like, I honestly feel this man may kill me.
Right.
She sounds like she's on Quaaludes or something. I don't know. But, in terms of the film itself, so I want to talk a little bit about the movie-going experience first. We actually saw this at Roadhouse Cinemas, which newly opened here in Tucson over the weekend. It had a soft opening, actually, so it was open, but it's not, like, grand open. So they had, like, all of their food for half off, and basically you got to come in, see the movies, and please pardon any mistakes as they work out their kinks. Really, really cool theater. Unfortunately, we underestimated how popular it would be. The online reservation system was not up yet, so apparently people were lining up at like 7 o'clock in the morning to buy tickets for later that evening. We took our movie bear group there, and of course there weren't seats for all of us, so we ended up hanging out an extra hour to go to a later show. Ended up sitting in the very, very front row. And like at Alamo Drafthouse, even in the front row, it's still a good seat. But here, I still have a neck ache. Even though the chairs recline, even though I had a chocolate, what was it called? The Robert Brownie Jr., Jim?
The Robert Brownie Jr.
The Robert Brownie Jr. It was amazing.
I want one of those. That name is amazing.
It was so good. It was delicious. But yeah, I definitely won't be sitting in the front row again. But it was cool, like seeing this movie in this new theater. They have a really great setup. Definitely see us, continuing to enjoy movies there. It's not the Alamo Drafthouse. How could it be? But it's probably the closest thing we're going to get, and it's pretty good. So, sorry, quick shout out to Roadhouse Cinemas. Really, really glad to have you guys in town. Awesome stuff. Big crowd there to see the movie. All the seats were sold out. Didn't see any empty ones. Let's see. So this movie seemed to me a lot longer than it was. I don't know if it's because it was sitting in the front and my neck was hurting, or if this movie is just a bit all over the place. It's a good movie. I liked it a lot. Probably B- in my book. Don't know that it's going to make my top 10 of the year. But I enjoyed it. I'm not sure if it's going to get any like Oscar love. I'm sure it probably will get a nomination for something. But there was a lot of hype going into this film, and again, hype machines just ruin it for me. I really expected something that I don't think I got, and we'll touch a little more on that later. But yeah, I mean, it's worth it. I would say go see it. They're saying that it's like the best date night movie in the last decade. I don't really understand how it's a date night movie.
I don't get that at all.
Those are very, so the people saying that are some very sadistic people.
Right.
I guess. Thanks, Newsweek or whoever gave that soundbite. But yeah, I mean, I think it's worth a watch. I think it's good times. Will, what do you think?
So for me, this is a really hard one to talk about in the pre-spoiler section. So we're probably going to be getting to spoilers pretty quick. Because once you start talking about any of the major elements, oops, you've already said too much. So in general terms as possible, first of all, I freaking loved this movie. Is it going to be in my top 10 list of the year? I don't know about that. Like, it may fall just short of that. That's not a knock against the film. I've seen a bunch of movies this year. We all have. So a film that falls right outside of the top 10 is still a damn good movie. I was really impressed by the performances here. Across the board, I liked the performances. There was maybe one that fell a little bit short for me, but only that's more of a nitpicky one. I was quite impressed with Tyler Perry, of all people. I was not expecting to. I don't like his stuff. You know, he's just not a guy that resonates with me. I've not really seen him in anything that worked for me. Yeah, his normal stuff, or he did
his Madeira stuff.
Well, that, but he also did. He did another movie like an action drama type movie earlier this year, last year. I forget the name of it. It did not do well. It bombed pretty quickly, and it was not very good. But I liked what he did here. I felt like that he was given, you know, he was able to let his charisma and his kind of like, you know, Tyler Perry knows how to market himself and knows how to market things, and they really tapped into that with the character that he played. So I liked the performances. I liked the plot pieces. I liked the different places the story went. I liked the direction quite a bit. I think it took what could be which could be kind of like a film that, you know, this film has a lot of like directions that it goes, and I think that a lesser director could have lost themselves in that. I think David Fincher is on the point here. I would strongly recommend this film. I would say that this film should work for just about everyone, except for a date night movie. I don't get that at all. That's fucking weird. I think this is just more of a movie for people that want to go see a good movie. So yeah, should you go see it? Yeah. Should you go see it tonight? Yeah. Go as soon as you can. Earliest ticket, earliest showing. Go see this movie. It's quite good.
Nice. All right. So you got one kind of pretty good. You got one that was fucking awesome. Jim, where do you come in?
I think I come in like smack dab in the middle of you guys. I like this film a lot, especially in the first two acts. I really loved how tight this movie was. There are some surprises in this movie, a lot of tension. You're right, Will, some great performances. We'll get into some of the specific performances in a little bit. It definitely kept me pulled into this world, and then just kind of dumped some surprises on me. And this is the kind of movie that I think invites a rewatch. There's a lot going on that's both in the plot and is implied in the story. And I think a second viewing would allow you to take a look at it maybe from a couple of different angles, because it is a twisted movie, and you can look at it maybe a couple of different ways.
If we watch it again, I will be watching from multiple different angles.
Yes, I know exactly what you're going to be watching for too.
Well, maybe the angle that you want to not watch it from is like right up in the front row, neck craned up.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe. Exactly. This is also the kind of movie that if you see with friends or talk to others who've seen it, there's a there's a lot to talk about. This is one of those movies that kind of can stay. Some aspects of this movie will stay with you, and you'll want to talk about them with people. It's really just. It's not so much. I guess it starts out as kind of a mystery, but it's really just it ends up being a thriller. I will just say that. I would say it's a relationship thriller. And as far as being a date movie, wow. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It definitely could start some discussions between couples, between the pairs, or whether it's boyfriend, husband, wife, husband, whatever.
Discussions or fights.
It could start some really heavy discussions. I'll just say that the first two acts I thought were outstanding. The ending was really messy and unfocused for me, and I guess I don't know if I can blame that on Fincher or just the screenplay or the book itself. Have any of you guys read the book? Because I haven't read the book.
I haven't. No.
Not yet, but this one is now kind of skyrocketed up my to-read
I think
list.
a lot of people are going to be reading the book. People have said it's fairly representative of the book. It closely follows the book. So I'll just say I liked it a lot. I especially liked the first two acts. The ending let me down a little bit, let off the gas, and kind of had some confusing things as far as changed the tone of the movie altogether for me toward the end, after the first two acts. And I'm talking about well after certain things happen in the movie, twisty things might happen, that it was just they didn't follow through on some things, and it kind of confused me. But I would say definitely, I would say go see this movie. I think it's going to be talked about from now to the end of the year. At least the performances, possibly the screenplay, possibly the director. There's still a lot of good movies to come out, believe it or not, at the end of the year. But this one could be in the discussions. I think it's a great looking movie. It's definitely got its own what do I want to call it? Visual look, I guess, or sensibility, and I think it looks great on the big screen, even when I'm got my neck craned up at it. So maybe that's why I want to see it again. But I think it's worth seeing.
And just a clarifying point for me, I think I said B- earlier. I've been on the fence between an A- or a B+, and I think it came out as B- instead of B+, which is kind of where I ended up. I mean, yeah, definitely. I'm hearing what you're saying too, Jim, and it's resonating with me. I mean, it is a good movie, and I enjoyed it. But I think that ending just really sort of was a little herky-jerky, and I think that's where a lot of it fell out for me. Like the first 2/3 of the movie, like I was totally like, well, not really on the edge of my seat because I was craned back in it, but like I was just very anxious and uncomfortable and like, man, where's this going? And it reminded me a lot of like the tension that Breaking Bad used to create for me, and that's a very good thing. So I like the movie. I definitely would like to see it again. I don't know if we'll see it in theaters again, but definitely, rental or something. But I would definitely, totally echo you guys. It's absolutely worth checking out. Are you guys ready to go into some spoilers?
Yeah,
I think we kind of have to.
Because I want to hear a little bit about how, if you guys feel as strongly as I did that the movie definitely is out to manipulate the audience. And
all right.
And
we'll hold that thought.
Yeah.
Hold that thought. All right. So spoilers for Gone Girl are incoming right now. If you've not yet seen this film and you want to protect your innocence where the film is concerned, go ahead and just skip ahead to the plugs if you're listening, on tape delay. If you're live, give us about 10 or 15 minutes and come back. And okay, guys, spoilers fair game. Jim, you mentioned thinking that they're trying to manipulate the audience. Do you want to expound upon that a little?
Yeah, boy, let's we could talk about the twists in the movie and stuff later, but obviously the movie starts out a certain way and wants you to make you think it's about a couple. There's tensions within the couple. It starts out with her disappearance. He's under suspicion, possibly for murder, and making her disappear. So I think the movie is trying to set us up with feelings against this guy, right? Mm-hmm. They're kind of throwing circumstantial stuff at us, and then the twist happens in the movie where, lo and behold, she's not dead. She comes back, and then things start to unravel and things swing the other way, and that it's kind of where I had a problem with the movie. Like, did you guys feel at any point in the movie that he was like an evil dude?
So this is where I think that yes, the film does try to manipulate you, but I think that the way it does so is in a very justified way with what I believe to be the director's intentions. This film happens. Yeah, or the writer. Well, the writer, but also the director, because obviously these are plot points within the story, but the way they're presented on screen is totally Fincher, and he's the type of guy with his films. He puts things forward in such an ambiguous way that you, as an audience member, will project a little bit of kind of your own expectations or thoughts onto what's happening, and as you're trying to deduce, as you're trying to pull these threads. Here we've got a character who. The Ben Affleck character who we're following. He's the quote-unquote protagonist. He's the guy who we're seeing.
Well, he's the only one around.
Yeah, he's the guy. We're following him along, and we start to get more and more things. And now we've gone from like saying, okay, yeah, this guy isn't the guy. Now we're questioning our own expectations. Now we're putting thoughts like, could this guy really be something else? I was expecting him to be this way. And a lot of people will probably start looking at the character one way or the other, start trying to second guess it. Yes, he did it, or no, he didn't. I think that's what the first third of this movie is. A lot of people are going to come to a completely different decision as to what happened. Once the reveal happens, now we have to start putting a lot of those pieces back together, because we've had spent a lot of time distrusting our lens through this movie, and now we're putting some trust back in him as we find out that, yeah, he was a patsy the whole time to this wife who is, goddamn, she's like a supervillain in terms of like how methodical she was in her plotting. And I think that worked very, very, very well for me. I think that it could have been really easy for this film to have painted the Ben Affleck character as a saint, or to paint him as a complete sleazebag who just happened to be innocent. What it did instead was it towed that line, and it towed it very, very comfortably. And that's a combination of writing, that's a combination of directing, and that's a combination of a good performance by Ben Affleck. He played the role of turning on that charming smile, but maybe it's a little bit sinister. Maybe it's not. I don't know. There were a lot of things that really made this a film where you don't have, unless you've read the book or you know going into it, you don't know what to fully expect here, and you're second-guessing yourself by the time that the halfway point happens.
Well, and I like that it keeps you kind of guessing, especially with you know, the Ben Affleck character, right, Nick Dunn. There's a point at the end where they're about to go on the talk show or whatever. The chick from Fox News is there, right? And
Nancy Grace, the poor man.
Yeah,
Nancy Grace?
exactly. You know, and the wife is like, "Oh, I'm pregnant, Nick," and all of a sudden she's trying to, like, you know, and at one point before he learns that she's pregnant, like, Nick grabs her and like bangs her head against the wall, and like obviously he's not a perfect dude. He's not afraid to like push his wife or smack her into a wall. You know what I mean? Whether she deserves it or not, that's still like violence against, you know, your partner. So, you know, there's kind of a underlying current of temper there. But I almost wondered, because, you know, we had like 5 false endings, I almost wondered if he was going to end up killing her with Nancy Grace downstairs in the living room and bring us back full circle. Like, maybe they catch it all on film. I kind of wish that that's where it had went, because I really hated the way this movie ended. But
yeah, here's my biggest problem with the movie and the ending. At the end, near the end, not at the end, he talks about how he's leaving her, right? He's going to leave her. But of course he doesn't. He doesn't leave her. I cannot figure out for the life of me why. Now, here's a guy who's set up, he's not a perfect guy, right? He's got his issues. He may or may not have a violent streak towards his wife. We don't know until we see something at the end that you just mentioned, Brad, where he pushes her into the wall. There was an incident early on in the film, but I think that was from her perspective, and I think that was from the lies that she wrote in her journal. That wasn't actually what happened. So up to that point, we don't know that he's been violent, really. We know that he's cheated on her with a younger woman, and we know that he had a lazy streak and played video games. Other than that, I don't know what there is against that character, where on the other side we have a fucking manipulative, batshit crazy psycho bitch, you know, murderous bitch. The scale just seems so out of balance there. And some people talk about, like, oh, well, this is how, you know, the give and take of a marriage and to the nth degree. And I'm like, I don't get that from this movie at all. This is a really fucked up relationship. I still don't understand why he does not leave that relationship.
Because the baby can't. There's a lot of reasons why he can't, and that's what the film. Well, the last third of the film is setting up all of that. This is a film that takes a lot of things, like puts a lot of pressures over the Ben Affleck character. First of all, you've got the pressures of Community. You know, everyone in the community immediately starts turning on him, thinking that he's the bad guy, vilifies him, and that's one within the community itself. But then it hits the the local news, and then it hits the national scale with this new sensationalism, which is another big portion of this. So you've got the pressures of marriage, the pressures of community, the pressures of like, am I the villain to the entire world? Then you've got this kid, and we've established earlier in the film that he wanted a kid at one point, and and then she didn't. It was a thing. Do you not do that sort of thing? But these are a lot of things that are important to him, and at the end of the day, what he succumbs to is the pressures of all of these different things. The importance to be seen, at least in a decent light in the community, to not be seen as a villain, to not be seen as the murderer, to not be seen as the bad guy, to be able to be a father. These things all outweigh his own sense of personal safety, and that's hard for us to watch because yes, she is a batshit crazy supervillain. What we would love to see happen is for him to win, but he doesn't win. These are two miserable people who made each other miserable, one of which lashed out through affairs, one of which lashed out by becoming a supervillain. I keep using that phrase, but goddamn, she was good. And at the end of the day, they are miserable together, whether they should be or shouldn't be. We all know he should get out of that relationship, but he doesn't. Right. He's trapped.
I don't even know that it's he doesn't want to be like hated, so he's staying with her out of that pressure. I mean, we saw him dealing with that earlier in the film. I mean, he obviously feels right in that he didn't kill her, obviously, you know what I'm saying? But I don't think he's staying with her because he doesn't want to be seen as the bad guy. I think he's staying with her because he's afraid that she's going to have this baby and she's going to fuck the kid up and he's never going to get to see the baby, and what could she do to this child, and how could she, she's going to use it to manipulate him. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't see a way out.
She's lied about everything else. Do we even know she's pregnant?
Well, that's the thing. It could be Neil Patrick Harris's baby. I mean, we saw him boning her. You know what I'm saying? He finished, and then she slit his throat. So who knows how potent your seed is just as you're dying while orgasming? I mean,
maybe she's got another vial of like the neighbor's piss sitting around. We don't know.
Right.
The film does not tip its hat on that either. Right. Like she's always going to be a step ahead of us.
Right.
Right. So speaking of boning, I'm going to take it there. I'm sorry, guys. I heard prior to seeing this movie that Ben Affleck's penis makes an appearance, and I read Vulture's guide on how to see Ben Affleck's penis.
How to see Ben Affleck's penis for dummies.
Exactly.
Oh wow.
No, seriously, they have a 12-step article. It's actually really funny. It's written from a humorous perspective, but it doesn't spoil you about the movie at all. It just says, when Ben's about to take a shower, keep your eye on this part of the screen. This is where you'll see it. And here's the thing: I did not see Ben Affleck's penis, and so
I didn't either.
I was very let down, and so I've been doing some research because I felt a little cheated. I won't lie.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to get the real scoop on Penisgate.
Yes, indeed. Hashtag Penisgate or hashtag Batdick. So I've been doing some research, and it seems like there are a few different things going on. A lot of people have seen his dick, and they're what they're describing
on the screen.
On the screen is not what we saw. It seems like there's a bottom portion that was either cut off due to some kind of weird projection setup, or maybe you just see it on an IMAX print, or there are two different versions of the film out there, and theaters get to elect which one they want to show. It's hard to say.
The one with a little bit of penis, the one without?
Right, but I mean, I have friends who saw it, and independently, I've been reading from movie critics and stuff who saw it as well, both in press screeners and normal screenings of the film. And there was one person who didn't see it in a press screener, but then saw it in a normal screening, and then someone else vice versa. So I'm really not sure what to make of it. I don't know what's going on. I just know I didn't get to see what I was hoping to see.
I'd like to think that, this is David Fincher. This is the same guy that directed Fight Club, right? So I'd like to think that there's like one frame of like Ben Affleck's dick just spliced into the movie somewhere.
Maybe that's it, but it definitely wasn't, at least in where we saw it. And again, we had a very poor vantage point also. But on the other hand, we were very close to that portion of the screen where it would have appeared, like
right under it.
Right.
But it didn't make an appearance from what we could see, and I couldn't tell if it would have been off frame or on frame, or it was just in the shadow, or who knows, or we had a different cut of the film. I don't know. But Brad, here you go. Another reason, like I said, to maybe get another view at the movie.
You do get to see a little bit of Neil Patrick Harris's penis, so if that's...
I did see that. It was all bloody.
It was bloody. And, yeah.
We saw more Doogie dick than Bat dick.
Oh my God.
And he was... So I mentioned before that there was one exception to the film. I love Neil Patrick Harris. I think that he is a fantastic individual. I don't think that I necessarily bought him in this role as much as some of the others. I thought Affleck was amazing. I thought Tyler Perry was amazing. I thought Rosamund Pike, holy shit, she was amazing. But Neil Patrick Harris as kind of the other, I guess the fourth name of the film, so to speak. I thought he was quite good, but I think the other three are the ones that I walk away really remembering.
I have to say that scene, Will, I kind of agree with you. I don't think his performance was that much to talk about. Like I said, he was fine. He was serviceable. It was good. I did believe his character. I mean, he was playing a kind of a creepy, stalkery kind of dude. Up until that point in the movie, though, I mean, actually in the movie, he didn't do anything wrong. I didn't see him do anything, act out in a way that was criminal or really skeevy. He could have been just trying to be a nice guy, but it was a little bit on the creepy side. I have to say that scene, the murder scene on the bed, was one of the best scenes this year, kind of up there with some of the scenes in Under the Skin that kind of made you go whoa, that's crazy. I thought that was the best scene in the movie. Unfortunately, it was very, very bloody and violent and tough to watch, but it was still. I just thought the way it was shot, it was the way it was lit and cut. I thought it was tremendous. As far as Tyler Perry goes. I hear people singing the praises of him, his performance here, and I thought he was fine. I'm trying to figure out what the hubbub was about. I mean, he played a very popular defense attorney in public. Was it missing persons cases or divorce cases? I forget.
Kind of the same type of case, just husband's in trouble for whatever, yeah. And
he was fine. I don't think he had really a lot to do. I mean, he was playing the smart aleck, kind of altogether defense attorney who was a little bit removed from the case the whole time. Almost he was advising him, but he didn't really seem to get too involved.
But that's what I liked. I liked that he had just enough, that he added a little bit of snark, you know what I mean? But he didn't go full Tyler Perry funny.
So you liked him for what he didn't do, not what he did.
Well, that's something for this type of movie. The thing is when you have this guy is basically playing a defense attorney for probably a lot of bad people, right? And you put this role in another person's hand, maybe someone that's really trying to overact it or oversell it, and you've probably got a much sleazier, grimy character who's playing up the dark sides of what he does, I'm defending really shitty people, or I'm all about the money, or I'm all about the television, what have you. You could have had the same lines, but with just a completely different delivery. What he did was he played it in a way that felt very believable within this world. This is a guy who is a huge success. This isn't, this isn't Better Call Saul. This is the guy that handles really huge cases with like $1 million retainer or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this guy is capable, he's charming, he's media friendly, he's able to be in front of the camera and not put people off. And I think that by playing those things with just enough like charm and just enough competence and know-how, but also reining it back from all of the things that he could have done, I think that is a smart decision. So I would agree that like part of what he did very well here was keep from doing a lot of these other things.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was great casting, out of the box casting, and it worked in the movie. I just don't think it was an out of the park performance that a lot of people are. I swear I saw somebody say, "Oh, he should be nominated for Best Supporting Actor." I'm like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me." He was good. I like the guy. I want to see him do more. I'd like to see him branch out more. But I think it was one of those roles where you take a guy that does over the top crap, like let's say Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman dude, right? You put him in a role like that, he plays it understated, he plays it straight, and you say, oh my God, this guy's amazing. And that's because you couldn't really see his acting ability behind some of the other stuff that he was doing, I guess. I don't know, just my opinion on that. I think he was good, I think he was serviceable, I think he fit the role really well. I just don't get the effusive praise for it.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think anything like, I don't need like him to get nominated or anything like that. I just think that this is a film that had an amazing female lead in Rosamund Pike, a very, very strong performance by Ben Affleck, and Tyler Perry could have been a sore spot in this film, and instead he held his own. And I think that's, I think maybe some of what you're hearing is also like people expecting his performance to be here, and when he's here, just like slightly higher, it blows them out of the water. I don't know. So probably a lot of things that go into it, but I still walked away from it with having a very, very positive experience based on what he did on screen. Absolutely.
I think a couple other performances that should be mentioned are Carrie Coon as Go or Margot, Nick's sister in the movie. I thought she was really good in that role, and also Kim Dickens is her name, the detective.
Yeah.
I thought she was very good as well.
Definitely.
I just liked. I wish they. I think that the sister had more to do acting wise. The detective kind of played it straight, but I would have liked to have seen more from her. But both of them made the movie better, I think.
Yeah. One last thing I want to call out in the beginning of the movie, Ben Affleck brings his sister a game called Mind Game, which I thought was really funny.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was Mastermind.
Or Mastermind. I'm sorry, Mastermind. Yeah. Because it's totally foreshadowing his wife, right?
Oh, that was very obvious.
So, like, yeah, totally. I'm like, wow, if he only knew.
Yeah. Well, but he was right. But the irony is, right, he's carrying the game, right, and not the wife. So, and she's the one who ends up being the mastermind.
Right.
Yep.
Indeed. All right. Well, guys, are we ready to move on to some quick plugs before we wrap for the week?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. On to our plugs. Quick spoil. No, I'm just kidding. No spoilers. Plugs. Will, what's your plug this week?
So I want to plug a film that has crept into my top 5. Yes, that's right. Top 5 list for the year. And that's The Skeleton Twins. This is a very understated film starring Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader that has both amazing, funny, comedic sequences and also like really impactful, dramatic sequences. I would definitely say you should rush out and go see this one if it's playing at a theater near you, if only for the performances that the two give. Kristen Wiig is quite capable. Bill Hader turns in what may be it's always hard. Like, it's hard being in like hyperbole mode, like, because it's really easy to say best ever, or what have you. But it's certainly one of the strongest male performances that I've seen this year, and I was not expecting that from Bill Hader, who's a guy that I know to be really funny, but I just wasn't expecting like him as a dramatic actor to have the chops as well. So, yeah, Skeleton Twins, go see it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, Will, I'd have to echo that. We did see that one also. I like the film a lot. I agree with what you say about Bill Hader. The guy is a tremendously talented comedian, writer, does fantastic impressions. If you've ever see anything with him doing impressions, he's amazing. But in this role, again, he kind of tones it down, but he really gets into the character, totally believable as the twin brother to Kristen Wiig. Did you guys also get kind of a during Gone Girl? Did you see Skeleton Twins before Gone Girl, Will?
I did, yes.
Did you? There were certain times when Nick Dunn got together with his sister, and they were, and I'm like, wow, this is like echoing Skeleton Twins in a weird way for me.
So many twins this week, yeah.
I know. But yeah, I'd echo that plug, definitely.
Yeah, it's a great film. I enjoyed it a lot. Good pick. All right, Jim, how about you?
Yeah, I did have a little beef with the ending, but Will and I will hash that out and get back to it.
Yeah, that'll be a later review.
Yeah. I was going to plug the Roadhouse Cinemas, but Brad's already covered that. So I'm going to talk about a movie that I saw last night on my iPad through an app called Fandor. I think I've talked about it before. It's a movie app, and they have a lot of very offbeat stuff on there, like old instructional documentaries of how to be a crossing guard and just some really vintage stuff, like early silent films and stuff. But they had a movie on there called I Killed My Mother by a young director named Xavier Dolan, or Xavier Dolan, I guess is his name. Young guy. This was I think one of his first feature films that really got noticed. He had a film this year at TIFF, I think. I don't know if it played, Will, at Fantastic Fest, called Mommy.
Hold on, is that there was
anyway,
one that played at Fantastic Fest called Goodnight Mommy, but I don't think it's the same one. No, this is a different one.
Really good film. This guy was like really young when he made this, like 20 years old, and it's astounding. Just an astounding movie. It's called I Killed My Mother. It's about this young gay teenager and his mother and the difficulties that they have and the relationship, the bond that they have growing as he's growing up in Canada. It is in French, so it is subtitled, but it's wonderfully shot, wonderfully edited, pretty well written movie. I'd say see it, and if you have a chance to see any of other Xavier Dolan's other movies, he had one called Lawrence Anyways that's been very popular about a trans person called Lawrence, and then this new movie called Mommy, which is getting a lot of buzz. So anyway, the films of Xavier Dolan.
Awesome.
Good plug.
Well, for me this week, I just want to give a quick shout out to Movie Bears Podcast TV. Maybe that seems a little self-serving, but we are back. Our sister spin-off show is back for the fall TV season. We've been reviewing some awesome shows and some not really so awesome shows the last few weeks. One of those was Selfie. Will, give us your best duck lips. Nice. Awesome.
Oh my God.
we had a I don't know if either of you. Nice, Jim. That's awesome. Love it. I don't know if either of you guys went back and watched any of the show today on YouTube, but we had a little, in honor of ABC's Selfie, we had a little selfie session. Where we were like taking our pictures, and it was kind of funny. I was watching it back, and I'm like, oh my God, that was crazy. But anyway, it was a fun episode, so go check it out. You can find the episodes on MovieBearsPodcast.com, of course, in our iTunes and Stitcher feeds as well. So check it out. Good stuff. Next week, tune in. We're going to be discussing the premiere of Flash, which was actually on tonight while we were doing the show. So I'm looking forward to watching that this evening. But Arrow is back as well. We'll be discussing that, as well as The Walking Dead. So next week is going to be a pretty good show, so make sure to tune in. Guys, I don't know what the hell we're going to review next week. There's nothing really coming out that's tripping my trigger here.
I would like to see St. Vincent.
St. Vincent?
Yeah, the Bill Murray movie that's coming out.
Yeah, is that this week? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well,
or the
we'll
Judge
check it out.
With Robert Brownie Jr.
Robert Brownie Jr.
Oh my God.
We could eat brownies and talk about that.
We could. All right, we'll talk about it offline. We'll figure something out. But till then, everyone, have a great week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.